This is the Café Con Podcast.
All right, and action.
I'm Isaac.
And I'm George.
You already know what this is, because if you don't, then you better learn. You better learn what this is today. Actually, you're going to know what it is as soon as you see our guest, because our guest made his own merch, his own gear. This is the first time anybody's ever made their own gear for the Café Con.
We're doing something right.
Café Con podcast. I think it's not a bad idea, bro. It's not a bad
fire.
idea. That was so... what a great...
That someone felt compelled to do that. I'm
Dude,
honored.
and he's so funny. He's such a great guy. You know, so today we have on Russell Grant Coyne. Right? That was he said his middle name was Grant?
Yeah.
Yep. See? My wife just confirmed, because it's her uncle.
Middle name was
Lee. Martin Lee Coyne. And what a guy, dude. You said it pretty well sort of halfway through the podcast that this was like the first pod that we had on that was like an awareness raising pod. Utilitarian was the word you used, and I think that's a pretty good word, because he came on to talk about a couple of things in specific. We covered a lot of different areas, but mainly my notification service, as well as the Healing Sounds of Music, which he runs the Healing Sounds of Music. And my notification service is a company in which he's partnered with that has to do with emergency responses. So it notifies up to 9 people. If you're in he said his service is for worst case scenario. So if you're incapacitated, if you cannot speak for yourself, and he'll go into how you can sign up for this thing and where you place it. It's a little sticker on your license, and they have something on the car as well. I think he said, right? Something on the car.
Yeah.
And basically it has an ID number, because a lot of people may have the same name, and you go to the ER, and usually the ER just notifies one person, your emergency contact. This notifies multiple people for a myriad of reasons, and he goes into that as well. So you can go on their website, My Notification, or My Notify One is what he said, the number one. So MYNOTIFY 1, the number one. .com, and you can use
in the description.
Yes, we'll put it in the description. You can use our promo code CAFECON, CAFECON, in uppercase or lowercase, and get 75% off. That's wild, bro. That's the first promo code we had. That's the first plug.
Reverent,
That's
tighten
awesome.
up, Reverent.
Reverent, tighten up, Reverent. Coffee company, come on, Respectfully, send me some bags of coffee, baby. That's the bag I want. Send me that bag.
Get a promo
That's the only bag, bro. Give us the promo code CAFECON. Let's go. So, anyways, he was an amazing human being, dude. We talked about everything. He lived in Chicago for 20 years, close to 20 years, which I didn't know. Actually, over in the 2 spans, but all the businesses he started. I took from it kind of what we talked about in the beginning, the curiosity, the due diligence, and the many roads that you take in life that you have to, or that you can, not that you have to, but that you can take, and do things that you didn't think you'd do and bring you immense amount of satisfaction. It was awesome. I've known him for 10 years, and there's certain things that I learned about him in this conversation that I didn't know.
I can see the light bulb go off in your mind. I'm like, I didn't know that about you, Russell.
Yeah. What did you take from this bad boy?
Halfway through, I knew what my answer was going to be for the takeaway question, and I was going to say, be aware of all the opportunities you get. But honestly, I think the bigger thing is the way of doing that is staying curious. Like, when I asked him one question of like, well, how were you as a younger, man? What were you doing? Like, because it was an interesting question you asked too of like, and I brought it up too of my family going to Chicago. There was just so much opportunity that is just like the people he met and other endeavors. But I think it's also just, it's deeper than that. It's being curious. That I think that's what, not to get religious, but you can learn from religious texts is from a practical level is not being childish, being childlike, which means being curious, be joyful. But I think the biggest thing is just stay curious, because you can get all those opportunities, but if you just don't have a curious mind, you'll cut yourself short, or you'll cut the opportunity short. So I think stay curious to opportunities and just ideas. Essentially too, when you were saying to like how they were thinking of ideas to make the accessibility to these cards even more streamlined, right? Like making them waterproof. Don't put them on just windshields. Actually have a card in someone's wallet. What happens if the windshield breaks? Like, just that curiosity goes farther than just thinking of idea, but it's also to sharpen the idea, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Loved it. Stay curious. Be curious.
Yeah.
Enjoy the episode. It was a beautiful one.
Yeah.
Love y'all.
The liquid gold, baby.
Coffee review time. So today, ladies and germs, I'm I'm drinking that Columbia roast again from Reverent Coffee Company. Shout out Reverent. Send us a promo code. Reverent,
bag.
love you.
A coffee
Send
bag.
us, a bag. I just want a bag of beans.
We don't
You feel
want
me?
money. We want coffee bags.
How am I taking it today? I took a NyQuil yesterday because I wasn't feeling too hot, so I was a little slow. Hit the coffee. Coffee did me great. I'm gonna give it. Last time was an 8.1. Remember? Today, I'm gonna give it an 8.2, going up 0.1, because man, it just feels fantastic. And I thought I was gonna be slow. My hair is going crazy. It just made me feel fantastic. I can't say enough about those people and what they do. I don't know how they make their coffee taste so good. The smell of the beans, when you open that bag and you smell the beans, oh my. It's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful Colombia, Ross Colombia. Once again, we'll put everything in the post, in the bio. We love you, Reverend Coffee Company. How about you, Da?
Espresso machine, same old, same old. I put a good amount of milk this time and 3 spoons of sugar, 8.4.
Whoa!
I think it helped that I had a banana beforehand and I put creatine in it, so it like didn't
And what,
kill
your
my
coffee?
stomach. Yeah. 8.4. I think it has a lot to do with the effect of it and then also how it marries with the episode, I think.
Oh, how'd I sound now? I love it. I love
There,
it.
we're recording now.
Mr. Coyne, thank you for the love. Sorry for the hold up, gentlemen.
I'm sure I'm your first guest wearing a Cafe Con T-shirt.
It was only a matter of time.
Hey, man, this might be a good time to start branding.
There's never a bad time to start branding. Hey, George, now I should have asked you this a while ago. Do you prefer George? Do you prefer George Michael, or do you prefer GM?
Either or, to be honest. I know that sounds kind of...
Any of them?
That sounds kind of weak, but yeah, honestly, because I've gotten all 5 nicknames throughout my lifetime that I'm just like, it's okay.
His family calls him Michael. That's the other.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Oh, really? They
Not
just-
that many people know that. You can explain it to them if you want, Isaac.
Oh, maybe I just revealed some secrets. I shouldn't have said that.
No. I mean, people know that.
No, I just think it's because your dad's name is Jorge. Your dad's name is George, and you're
Yeah.
George Michael. So I think it's just easier to call you Michael.
less
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have gone the George Foreman route, where every one of George Foreman's children was named George.
Oh my
ridiculous.
God! Rest in peace, George Foreman. Thank you for the grills. Here's to
Yes,
Foreman.
rest-
Cheers, gentlemen.
I loved his
Salute,
grill.
salute,
I
salute.
loved his grill. I made a lot of chicken out of that grill.
Man, I used to make some really great like pitas. I used to fill pitas and stuff them and just press that down. I know that first sip of coffee, doesn't it feel magical?
Not for me. I can't stand coffee.
You know, that's funny.
Really?
Because I don't think George Michael knows this, but tell him what your dad did for work.
And my family was heavily into coffee. My grandfather was one of the founders of the New York Cocoa Exchange.
Whoa.
The New York Cocoa and Coffee Exchange. So he was also a president. My dad was huge in that business. He was also a president of the New York Cocoa Exchange. So my family is heavily into coffee. In the 60s, my dad used to travel to Ghana a lot to purchase the raw products. In fact, we got a lot of pictures. These people had never seen cameras before. You know, my dad would be there and they'd have a moving camera and everybody would just stand still. And my mother would be in the background telling them to move, but they had no idea it was a moving camera or that it was anything, or even what it was for the most part. So they would just be standing there stark still. And it was pretty
Why
funny.
is that why you think you don't like coffee? Because you were just bombarded
No,
by it?
I don't know. I mean, we had some of the best coffee in the world in my house. I just never really liked it, and my parents kind of never pushed me to try it. And the first time I had it when I was about 11 or 12, and I can remember clearly in my kitchen that my uncle gave me. He had coffee, and he induced me to try it. Took one sip, and I said, "Nah, this is not for me."
Was it the taste or the effect it gave you?
The taste.
I'm interested. Okay.
It was the taste. And you know what? On a freezing cold day, when I would come into work and they'd always have the coffee going, always kind of smelled good. But anytime I ever tried to taste it, couldn't stand it. Any chocolate candy that has too heavy of the coffee, cocoa in it, I can't stand.
But you like chocolate
side,
though. You like chocolate though. You like chocolate though.
Yeah, on the flip side, I love chocolate, and my dad it was cocoa, coffee, and sugar. So we used to get, when I would go to my dad's office, they would just pull out the bag that would be like 2 feet tall, huge thing. They just let me take anything I wanted as far as candy goes. And then every Christmas, we'd have Nestle's, Hershey's, and General Foods would send us a sample of every chocolate they made.
Wow.
And I would have these big fights with my mom because Hershey's would send us a 5-pound chocolate bar, which I really wanted, and my mom would give that away to some organization every year, and I was always saying, please don't give that away.
Isaac, I don't know if I ever told you, but my school, Dickinson, it's like 25 minutes away from Hershey Park.
Yeah, and we went to Hershey actually.
I went
and
a
we
couple
went
times.
to the theme park out there.
Yeah.
For our senior trip, for our senior class trip.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we
That was
went to.
before
Did you do a tour of the Hershey factory?
Oh, if it's inside the theme park, yeah.
Yeah,
I remember we did a tour of like where they made the chocolate, and we got to like make our
your
own chocolate or whatever.
That's a factory.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome. I
Small,
loved
it's
it.
small, but it's cool.
I loved
we
it.
had we got the VIP tour when we went there.
I can
and
imagine.
We were everybody's in the front thing. We're behind the scenes. They gave me so much candy.
Oh.
It was unbelievable.
Oh, I can imagine.
So you guys
But
went
for
there
the
before.
coffee,
You guys
when
went
I
there
would
after
go
DC,
visit
huh?
my dad's office, they had a coffee room, and they had a big white table in there, and they would have about 15 right around the edge. It would be a revolving table, and they'd have about 15 or 20 cups of coffee out there, and they would just go around and just be tying it and sampling it and changing it, and because they did a lot of blends of a lot of different coffee beans.
Wait, did you grow up in New York then?
Yeah, I grew up on Long Island.
Okay, Strong Island, baby. That's what I'm talking
Strong
about.
Island.
I had a couple roommates from Long Island. They called it Strong Island.
I've never heard that.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
We were just talking about the Islanders. We were just talking about hockey. Have you been watching hockey, George?
I'm gonna get into it now.
Well,
Yeah, you aware that Ovechkin's about to break the record
Yeah.
for the most goals. In fact,
Yeah.
he's tied with Gretzky now, and they play the
great
Islanders
one.
tomorrow.
it
And I
felt like he was
telling
like 10
Isaac,
goals away like 2 weeks ago.
What's that?
It felt like he was like 10 goals away like
He was.
2 weeks ago.
He was.
It was.
Unbelievable.
crazy.
He scored
2
two
weeks
last
is
night
already
to
with it.
tie it, and then he refused to go out. They had an empty net, and he refused to go out to score because he did not want to break it on an empty net.
I like
Really,
that.
really
I like that. It's like if LeBron would have broken Kareem's record on like if he would have fallen down,
Fast break or
and
something.
not even if he would have just been cherry picking and somebody would have just thrown him the ball and he would have gotten a layup.
Yeah.
So
It's just not going to
I
be
like
as
that.
memorable on an empty net goal.
Yeah,
I agree
especially when they show his
100%.
highlights later on. Like you want it to be like.
So I was telling Isaac, it's all set up because he does score a lot against the Islanders, but he's never the Islanders goalie Sorokin, who's only been in this is like his 4th year in the league. Ovechkin has never scored a goal against him.
Really.
I think he's scored on 180 goalies. He's never scored on this goalie. So it's
time
all
to bet
set
the
up.
house.
It's all
Time to
set
bet
up.
the house.
Bet the house that he's going to
What are the
score on the goalie
chances?
tomorrow.
What are the chances of that?
Time to
Like,
bet
he's
the
facing
house.
the guy he's never scored on. I was telling Isaac the other day that I was watching like this mini docu on him in between like period
On who?
2 and 3, I
On who?
guess, on Ovechkin. Remember I told you he keeps like every.
Oh yeah,
He keeps every stick that he's played with.
that's
Either
insane.
either every stick he's played with or every stick he's like had a stat with. And they
Probably
showed
a stat or a milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, it was. They showed a room where he has just the sticks, and it was like in the thousands. So I think it's almost every game, pretty much.
Wow.
That's a lot, dude.
He,
The thing
he
that
signs it and puts the stat and the date of like who they played, when they played.
what blew my mind was Russell. Okay, so also, I'll get to the blowing my mind part, and then I got something else. Was that he showed me a side-by-side statistical comparison of Ovechkin and Gretzky as to they both have the same amount of goals right now, but Gretzky has like 3 times the amount of assists that Ovechkin has, which just puts it into perspective how ridiculous.
That's crazy.
He was owning. How many Stanley Cups does he have? 6?
I believe, it might be 6. It might be 4. It might be 5. It's 4 with the Oilers and one with the Rangers.
Kings? Oh, with the Rangers.
I believe he got with the Rangers in '94.
Wow.
He's got. Dude, it says he's got 4.
Okay, there you go. 3 with the Oilers and 1 with the Rangers.
Dude, they were all like.
Because the
up
Oilers won
4 years in a row. He won all of them with the Edmonton Oilers.
Yes.
Oh, then I guess he didn't win it with the Rangers.
Dude, to win 4 in a row.
Won it with the Rangers.
He won 4 in a row?
No, I don't think they won. They didn't win 4 in a row. The Islanders are the last team to win 4 in a row. They won like 4 in 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like 83, 84, 84, 85. And then they lost the next year, 86, 87, and 87, 88.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
You're a big time hockey guy, huh? You're a big time hockey guy.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
I've been playing goalie since I was 15.
Ooh.
Dude, he was featured in the Sun Sentinel.
I was on the front page of the Sun Sentinel. The Panthers had a tryout. It was a marketing ploy. What happened was in 2015, both their goalies got hurt in the same game. Luongo got hurt, and then I forgot who the backup was. He got hurt. Luongo ended up coming back in, but as a marketing thing, they decided to have a search for a spare goalie. So they had a tryout, and then like 1,500 people applied. They chose 60 goalies. Had professional players came in. We went to at the time it was the BB&T Center. Now it's the whatever it is Center. Yeah. And we just had a fun tryout. Put us through drills and everything. I think a college guy. I mean, I was in my 50s. They weren't choosing me. They chose some kid. But the next morning, I wake up, my phone's blowing up, and I'm on the front page of the Sun Sentinel. It says trying to find a keeper.
That's cool.
What? Who cares if it's a marketing ploy? You're on the front page.
That's cool. They did stuff like that back
Luongo was never on the front page.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And he's a Hall of Fame goaltender, isn't he?
Yeah. He will be. I don't think he's eligible yet.
That's what I'm talking about.
Russell, when Isaac told me you were gonna come on the pod, I was like, man, we always had good conversations in the backyard of the Rossies. That I feel like you've lived a very interesting life. Your family in general, and I don't mean that in like a demeaning way. I mean like truly, like you guys have lived a very interesting lives. The Coynes, right? So.
Let's explain the connection now.
This
is a good time to explain the connection.
Let's give a proper intro now.
How Russell Coyne. I don't know what your middle name is. What's your middle name?
Grant.
Solid.
Yeah, my dad's middle name was Lee, so he middle named me Grant. Lee and Grant, two fine generals.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. So, who was Stonewall? Douglas? I don't even remember who
Stonewall Jackson?
Oh, I don't remember, dude. I don't know. I'm so bad with history. So, actually, I like history, but coffee's kicking in. What is the connection, Russell Coyne? Because I don't want to sleep on the couch.
The reason I'm actually on this podcast is because if I wasn't, you are married to my niece, my beautiful niece Sky, and if you didn't have me on the podcast, you were going to be sleeping on the couch for many years. So, by the way, here's my. I don't know if you can see it on.
No, turn the brightness down a little bit on your phone.
Is that what I got to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it better there.
Yeah,
there it is.
That's me right there on the front page.
That's so cool.
Were you playing travel hockey, or were you playing for a school? Because I know a lot of schools.
No, I mean I played at BU intramurally, and then I've just been playing in leagues and open hockey. I played, a couple of times a week in open hockey, like from noon to 1:30, and then I played in a bunch of leagues. I actually played with the Panthers goalie coach, Rob Tallis. He played for the Blackhawks and maybe another team as a professional goalie, and he's their goalie coach. I played in a hockey league with him. he didn't play goalie because it wouldn't be fair for him to play goalie in a hockey league.
So you
he
still watch
played
a lot of
defense.
hockey. You still watch
What's
a lot
that?
of hockey. You still watch a lot of hockey, right?
Oh, I watch a ton of hockey.
What's
yeah.
up with the Blackhawks? They're not doing so well, are they?
No. They had their time. Look, they won 3 cups in 4 years, 5 years. They had, Patrick Kane,
Patrick Kane.
Eddie Belfour. I mean, they had a lot of good players, and they just ran their course where it happens to most teams at some point.
Yeah.
You're up, and then you lose players, and all of a sudden you...
The Patriots, man. It's like the Patriots.
But, they have Connor Bedard now. He's one of the top players. They got some good young core. It's just going to take a few years to rebuild.
Yeah, I just asked because I was born in Chicago, so I was like, let me see if he knows what's up with them. Because last time I heard they weren't that great.
They'll get back to prominence at some point.
Yeah.
The Blackhawks is also a name where I told Sky one time because I'm playing NHL here. I have it on my video games, and I got drafted by them. And she's like, "Oh, what team are you playing for?" And I said, "I'm playing for the Chicago Blackhawks." And she's like, "There's no way that's the name of an NHL team." And I go,
Well, they rebranded the Commanders for that reason.
No, that's not why she said that. That's not why she said that.
I'm saying.
Was
Oh,
it
it's not.
Black,
So why did she say that
Hawks?
then?
Black
Yes.
Hawks?
Oh.
Yes, it's a little
There's
bit.
a guy on Howard Stern that did a
thought you meant more
phony
like a
phone
political
call
one.
doing that, and he just kept saying, "Yes, the Blackhawks, the Blackhawks."
Yeah, dude, that's why she's like, "There's a team named the Blackhawks." I go, "Yeah, there is."
Yeah, right.
That went over my head.
It was very funny. Anyway, shout out Chicago, great city. Actually, Russell has some connection. Let's talk about the interesting life. Now, I wanted to bring it back to that because you said you've lived an interesting life, and Russell has lived a very interesting life.
Yes.
Let's talk about Chicago first. I want to go to Chicago because you, like you said, you're born and raised in New York. Did you move to
Long
Chicago?
Island.
Did you
Correct.
move to Chicago after
I moved to
college?
Chicago after college. I
After
wanted to get
BU.
into the commodities business. Yeah, I went to Boston University, and I wanted to get into the commodities business, which my family was well known for. And it's either New York or Chicago are the two big markets. And I didn't, as much as I love New York, it is a tough city to live in. Really tough city to live in. So I wanted to live in a city, but I thought I'd try Chicago, get away from home, try something different. So I flew out there and I interviewed, and I got a job very quickly in the commodities business, probably because they checked and heard about my family, because I had no experience. And I moved out and I became an arbitrage clerk in the Japanese yen.
What does that mean? What's
Arbitrage is basically a fancy term for the simultaneously purchase and sale of any item. So basically what you're doing is you buy it and you immediately turn it over and you make a small profit on the spread. Or you do it the other way. You sell and you buy. So you're basically neutral on your positions at that time, because you might be buying 100 yen and then immediately I'm selling that 100 yen to a bank at a different price, and I'm making money in the spread in between the two.
Did you have the buyer set up prior to?
I would be on the phone with the buyer. I would be working with Canadian banks, and I'd be on the phone, and I would quote them the market, and they would tell me what they wanted to buy or sell, and then I would execute the order in the pit, and then and the price I would be quoting them, there would be a half a point or a point different than the actual price, and then I would just, as soon as the order was filled, I'd say you're filled on your 100 lots, and I would just make the money in the spread between the two.
What goods were you doing that with? Like gold, silver, like things like that?
I did it in the currency market. I did Japanese yen.
Okay.
And then I worked for a company called Saul Stone, and then I ran their Deutschmark desk for a number of years.
Okay. Wow.
Dude,
So
that
it was
is
the German Deutschmark.
That is so fascinating to me that people trade like currency. That it just goes over my head, because to me that's just like exchanging. I don't even like dollar bills for people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just exchanging.
The problem was there was a tremendous amount of corruption going on there, because it's supposed to be a free market. It's supposed to be an open outcry where, when they're selling 500 lots, it's supposed to be spread out to be among everybody. And there were just so much insider trading going on, where people were only trading with their buddies. And right when I left Saul Stone, I became a trader. I rented a seat and I went in to trade for myself as a local. They had a huge FBI sting that was going on for 2 years, and probably 3/4 of the people I know all got arrested and went to jail.
It's like Wolf of Wall Street. You literally were living in Wolf of Wall Street.
Similar thing, yeah. It was a huge sting they were running, and a lot of it was based on the fact that prices were getting manipulated and people were only trading with their set friends, and there was a lot of price fixing going on. Because, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars in income that these guys were able to make every year based on these trades. So they had a huge, huge sting with the FBI.
That is I see. I never knew this. I didn't even know you did. I know that you worked in commodities, but I didn't know this is what you went to Chicago doing initially, right? So then after you left, after you were a local trader, like you were saying, did you go into owning the bar right after that? Because that's what I want to get.
While I was still there, me and my best friend, we had always talked about wanting to open a bar. And I always said to him, well, I just don't want to open a bar. I want to do something different. And he came to me one day and showed me these articles in Newsweek about these upscale billiard parlors that were opening up in Boston and New York. And I said, that looks interesting. So I flew to Boston. Actually, it was when I went there, it was a place I used to go roller skating. It was an old roller rink they turned into a huge pool hall that had like 30 tables.
Wow.
And the place was packed. And, I spent 2 or 3 days there with a girlfriend. And we would just go back and forth at different times to check it out, different times of the day, different days, just to see. And it was just always packed. And then I went home, and then I flew to New York. And they had about 3 upscale pool halls. And I spent 3 days in New York going at different times. And I just couldn't believe the business they were doing. So I flew back to Chicago, and I said to my friend Brian, I said, let's open a pool hall.
What's the upscale? I want to know what the upscale vibe is. Because I've been into some pool halls before. Right, and but like, what made it upscale? When you say upscale, what did that mean?
Well, the area, number one, we were in Lincoln Park, which is a very high-end area of Chicago. Yeah. Number two, it's the decorations. It's the architecture that you put into the place, the interior design of the place, the pricing. Obviously, you're not going to go into and the quality of the tables. You go into some shitty pool halls. They got cheap tables. Place stinks like beer. There's no decorations. It's everything you put into it, and that's kind of the vibe we had, and that discourages the riffraff.
Yeah.
So we were like the first upscale pool hall in Chicago to open.
Wow.
And we were the number one pool hall for 8 years.
Were you still working trading during this time frame? You just went into full-time owning that.
Full-time owning. I went
what
to
was the
bar,
name?
Went the Q Club.
As
a pool cue, CUE club.
The Q
So
Club.
Brian and I, my friend Brian, we both went to bartending and bar management school because there's no way I was gonna, open it without some sort of knowledge.
Wow.
And we did really well. I mean, 8 years, and then we ended up selling it to another guy that owned a pool hall in the suburbs, and he bought it from us.
Dude, what is it like to own something? Because that's a
It's a lot of work. I can tell you this. Nobody is going to look after your place like you are. So it's important to get good help. It's key. I had great employees, but bottom line, you want a place to be successful as an owner, you got to be there. You got to spend some time there.
That was my next question, like how often were you there? Because it could be easy to be like, oh, I'll let everyone else deal with it. I'll be
every day. Brian and I split the time for the first couple of months. We were both there every day until we kind of got a handle on everything. And then we split the time. One of us would be there during the day, then one of us would come at night, and then the next week we'd alternate. So almost all the time one of us was there. As it got kind of later on and I got kind of burned out on it, I would work from, let's say, noon to about 7, and then I'd go home for a few hours, and then I'd come back for a few hours and then close the bar. But I was always available by phone.
What time did it close at?
We actually used to close at 1. It was interesting. When we first started, there was an old law in the books that said you could not serve alcohol after 1 o'clock if you had a pool hall. So the liquor license was for 2, but I had to shut the pool tables down by 1. And everybody would leave. Nobody would hang out. It was quite annoying. And then on Saturdays, you get the extra hour. You can stay open until 3, but we had no business once the pool tables shut down. So we actually lobbied for it, and we actually got them to change the law. So
It's such a weirdly specific law that you can serve alcohol after 1. However, you can't do it in a pool hall. So you have to
these
shut
pool
down
halls,
the
I
pool
guess,
hall.
again, it was a law from the 30s and 40s where these pool halls were really rough and tumble, and there were a lot of fights.
That's where the gangsters used to hang out back
Gangsters
in
and
the
the
day.
ne'er-do-wells, so they wanted to take care of that, and they shut them down early. I mean, I used to have some fights with some customers because
Dude,
I would
he
always
has some good
announce it.
stories. He has good stories.
I mean,
about it.
I would announce it ahead of time. We're closing at 1. You can't play pool past 1, but these guys would be betting, and they'd always, and after 1 o'clock, they'd start racking the ball, and I'd run over there and I'd go, "You can't play anymore," and guys would just get into screaming matches with me because they said, "We're playing, we got to bet." I go, "I'm not losing my liquor license, so you can play 1 more game of pool."
And they're already probably pretty drunk.
Yeah, they were pretty drunk. Yes.
Yeah, that alcohol at that time, I just know nothing. Usually, nothing good after midnight happens with
No,
with.
but for the most part, we didn't have any problems. I told Isaac a couple of stories about a couple of guys we had we had to knock out with a pool cue.
Oh wow!
There's some good stories.
I wanted
they-
to ask before
They were drunk.
potentially-
Guy was drunk. He ended up not having enough money to pay for the pool table, and we would collect a driver's license or a credit card when they came in for them to rent out a pool table because they're not paying in advance. So I had his driver's license, and I said he didn't have the money. I said, "Fine, come back tomorrow. Come back the next day. I have your driver's license. You can get your driver's license then." It was kind of a long thing to finally get him out the door, but him and his buddy finally leave. They get into their truck. I'm like, "Phew, thank God," because I just had a terrible vibe from this guy. Next thing I know, they're back in. They come rushing in the door. The guy tries to, we have a front counter there where we keep their license. The guy tries to push past me, and he was bigger than me. I'm 5'6" on a good day, 150. He was about 5'10", 180 or so. Tries to push past me to get his license. I jumped on his back, got him in a half Nelson. He's swinging me around. My other buddy, there were just 3 of us in the bar because it was a Sunday afternoon in the summer. We don't do a lot of business. And we used to keep pool cues in the back of the desk. And a lot of them were 2-piece cues, so they were unscrewed in half. And he just grabbed the pool cue and just crowned the guy. Had to crown him twice, splits his head open. Finally, the guy goes, I give up. And he starts floating to the ground with me on his back. He's gushing blood all over me.
Holy
And finally he's down. His friend comes running in, throws 2 pool balls at my head, trying to hit me, missed me. And then his friend ran out. The cops came. His friend tried to bolt in the van, and he was drunk, hit like 4 or 5 cars trying to get away, and the cops grabbed him.
shit.
And apparently he was underage. And I was really happy that nothing happened to our bar because we're responsible on that. But yeah, it was an interesting situation there.
I wanted to ask before we pivot away from Chicago. So what? The reason why I'm asking this is I want to see what was your experience there. What years were you there?
I moved there in '83, and I was there until '01. I actually moved to Florida on 9/11.
Whoa!
I actually got to Florida down, and I was moving into my house on 9/11 that morning,
The same
and I didn't
day?
have TV or radio, so I actually was one of the last people to find out what the hell was going on.
Oh my God! What did they? It's my mom's birthday. Fun fact. That's my mom's birthday.
Really?
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
September?
9/11.
So how was your experience in Chicago? I like to ask because
I loved it.
I love Chicago.
I would move back in a second.
What about the
I
city?
just
that
loved
was
it.
different?
It had everything in a big city has, but it had a small city feel. I mean, New York has a huge city feel because there's just skyscrapers everywhere. Chicago has so many streets with just beautiful architecture and these brownstones and quiet and just so much less than New York has. So many less people and so much on a less scale. I lived a couple of blocks from the lake. I had a boat. I was a big golfer. Illinois has the second most golf courses in the country after California.
What?
Yeah, it's California, Illinois, and Florida are like the 2
Wow.
biggest. But Illinois has
I didn't know that, but I knew they had a lot of golf courses.
They have
there.
a ton of golf courses.
Ton, bro.
And I worked
do.
in the commodities business. We were off at 1 o'clock, 1:30. I was done. So played a lot of golf in the afternoon. So it and it's so walkable. It's a really walkable city. I would put 5,000 miles on my car, and most of that was driving for hockey, to play hockey. So
You don't need a car in Chicago.
you don't. Between the L and the buses and the walking,
A lot of
you
people
don't
ride
need
bikes.
a car. So I love the city. Everybody's so friendly.
Isaac,
It
never
was
been?
so much cleaner. The first thing it was so much cleaner than New York. I mean,
Yeah.
I really loved it.
People are super friendly.
I really want to go to Chicago. I've never been. Sky and I
Very
talked about it
centralized.
a lot.
Like
Yeah,
you said, it's not like boroughs. It's like everything's in downtown pretty much.
I just really want to go because everybody says, and I've never been to Boston either. Those are the two
No.
like
we gotta go.
cities in
Boston's
the
a
US.
beautiful city. They've done a really good job integrating the stuff from the 1700s,
Yeah.
1800s into the modern. It really just kind of flows together. But I mean, they still have some cobblestone streets in Boston, and it's
That's
so cool
why-
because
it's so
those things were
beautiful.
from 1700s.
George and I were talking about
so
this
historic.
the other day. The thing that LA, because I heard somebody talk about this on a podcast, it would be cool if LA was able to sort of historically categorize things or catalog things, historically catalog, this is where this used to be or this is where this used to be, because it feels like everything, it's so transient and people are coming in and out so constant that the history kind of gets washed away. And obviously the history in large part is Hollywood, but it would be cool if they were able to catalog that more so that you're able to feel it in the city rather than it being just a changing city all the time, right? That's why we're in New Orleans, and New Orleans is very much like that. You still feel how New Orleans was, 100 years ago, 150 years ago. So I got to go to Chicago, man. I really want to go to, and the food there is great too. That's what everybody says too, that they have great food in Chicago also. Chicago.
All my cousins
do.
always argue they got the best tacos because there's a big Mexican community. So the tacos there are good. The gyros there are really good.
California, bro.
Yeah, I know.
Tacos.
My cousins are being biased, so
Cali has the best tacos. That's no question about it. Okay, so you were there. I didn't know you were there for 18 years. I thought you were there for
more
like
actually,
maybe 10.
because I moved back there in '08. I was down here in '01 to '08, and I moved back to Chicago from '08 to 2013.
Oh,
So 5 more years. And then at that point, my parents were both starting to have a lot of health issues. So I decided I better come back down here.
what did you go back for in 08?
I missed it so much. And I became a real estate appraiser. And I was doing really well and making a lot of money. I was working with a friend of mine. It was just me and him. And then the market crashed in '07, '08. So I kind of had no work to do. So I said, I have no job really. I miss Chicago. Let me move on back.
You see, interesting life, dude. I didn't know that either. A real estate, like trader, bar owner, real estate appraiser. I
also owned a hair replacement salon.
What? In Florida?
I also owned a hair replacement. No, in Chicago.
Why did you own a hair replacement salon? Why? And how did that happen?
Because I have a nice hair replacement, and the guy that made him was a genius, and he had an incredible invention. And one of his friends was going to open a salon, and he had some health issues and couldn't do it. So I got this, and I was kind of looking for something to do, and I got this tremendous deal on buying his salon. So I decided to go into that business, but it was such a schlep. It was it was like a 45-minute drive out to where the salon was from downtown Chicago. So I got kind of tired of it. So I stopped doing it.
How was that comparison to the bar? How was owning that? Did you get a lot of
No
similar clientele?
No comparison. I did not have a lot of hot chicks coming in to the hair salon as opposed to the bar.
Oh man,
I got a lot of girlfriends out of my bar. I
bet you did. I bet you did.
Russell, do you consider yourself like an entrepreneur or more of like an investor or like?
I would say
both?
more entrepreneur. And I've also owned a place where you brew your own beer.
What?
This guy's
I
done
had
it
a
all,
place.
man. I was
Me and a
anticipating
friend
all
opened a
this.
place where you brew your own beer. People would come in, they'd
anticipating
brew
all
their
of
own
this.
beer, and they would come in, they'd brew it, they'd leave it with us. We'd move it from room to room while it aged properly, and then they would come back in and they'd design their own label and they would bottle it.
What's the mindset behind you doing all these things, and how did you? Because I guess the question I'm thinking is like, is it out of necessity? Is it out of curiosity? Like, how did you go from one thing to the next? Is it out of opportunity? But you take a lot of risks and chances. That's the thing. A lot of people, if they have a business, they stay in that business and don't necessarily branch out of it. But you literally have done, and we haven't even gotten, which we're going to get to notification service and healing sounds of music. But you just have done so many different things that aren't in the same track. What is the mindset to go to all these different things?
That would definitely be opportunity where people approached me.
But you're not
and
scared.
Brought
You
up
don't have-
ideas.
You're
and
not
then
fearful.
I look into it. I try and do my due diligence, and see whether it's a good idea or not. And if I think it is, then I'm gonna try it, because why not?
Anything that did you ever have any fear going into those new avenues of things?
Big fear.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's always it's always going to be natural to have some sort of fear, especially when you have no experience at it and you're new, and there's a high learning curve on some stuff. There's definitely some fear, but it was always the excitement always overcame what the fear would be, because it's like, this could be something great.
Mm-hmm.
This could be something exciting. I mean, our pool hall, for example, I mean, I can't tell you over the years how many compliments we got, people that had been, it seemed like everybody in Chicago, at least at one time, had been into my pool hall over 8 years. And it's like everybody knew it. And, we had a lot of staff that worked for a number of years with us. We had very little turnover, because it was like a family, and everybody loved it. And it was just a special place.
What were the years of the pool hall? When did you
We
guys
opened
own it?
in 90 and sold it in 98. So 8 years.
That's a good time to have a pool hall. The 90s? I feel like the 90s was a great time for that era of thing. It was, before phones.
So wait,
and all
you
this stuff.
owned a pool hall in Chicago and then in Boston?
No, Boston. I flew to Boston to look at the ones that had opened
Okay.
ahead before us, and I did some research, because Boston and New York were basically the two places where pool halls had been opening that were considered upscale. So those were the two hotbeds. So I flew there to check those out, and then I flew back to Chicago, where I was living, and we opened in Chicago.
Okay.
It is very admirable the way that you have done all these things, just because I know for our generation, staying in one job for 50 years kind of seems not like the avenue that people take anymore.
Yeah.
In our day and age, you have to kind of be multifaceted, doing and trying all different types of things. That's why I was asking about that, because it's the way that I see of what you've done, I didn't even know, right? I've known you for 10 years already, and half of the things that you
10 years already?
It's been 10 years.
Wow.
In October, it'll be 10 years.
Man, I'm feeling old.
Sky, me too, brother. You kidding? Sky, George and I were talking about that yesterday. Sky and I have been dating for 10 years. Start this October, so I probably met you whenever she did her play. Yeah, it was probably around then. It was probably around November, December time frame.
I think the first time I met you was when we went for a meal at Louis Bossy.
That was the first time?
Louis Boss.
That's my recollection. I could be wrong.
I think I met you in the parking lot. Did you ever go to one of Sky's plays?
I
in
did.
UCF?
I did.
I probably met you in the parking lot of I know that's
But
where
I
I met
don't-
your dad,
What a name drop, Louis Bossy.
Louis Bossy. That's a
Isaac, I like that question you asked earlier, and then his answer was opportunity, because it reminds me. Sorry to veer off, but
Go.
it reminds me
Either way.
because I asked my parents when I was really young. I asked my dad. I was like, "Why did the family move to Chicago instead of any other cities?" Because his parents moved to Chicago, and then they would send money back to Columbia, and then all his siblings eventually moved to Chicago. So why not New York? Why not any other big city? And he said, because there was so much opportunity in Chicago. But it sounds like the 80s and 90s were just a world of opportunities. That's what it sounds like what you did, right? So what was that like compared to like today's day and age? Like what Isaac's saying of our generation just seems like we have to like, we can't put our eggs all in one basket. It feels as if we're there. It's like you can be all in on one thing. What was that like? Like just being in Chicago and being able to just devote yourself to the billiards or devote yourself to commodities. What was that? What was the city like, or just the world?
Oh man, it was an exciting time. It was scary times and it was exciting times. I mean, it was both. I mean, especially in the late '70s or whatever, things were pretty drab. We had the Cold War going on. We had gas prices were going crazy. We had inflation going crazy, and then the thing that kind of turned things around for this country actually was the Olympics and the USA hockey team when they beat Russia.
Oh, do you believe in miracles? Al Michaels. Isn't that Al Michaels with the
That's Al
legendary goal?
Michaels. That's Al Michaels, and a lot of those players were from BU.
Wasn't that the semifinal? It wasn't even.
It wasn't even the final. It was the
wasn't even the
semifinal.
final.
They had to beat Finland come from behind to beat Finland for the final. But that really put a spark in a lot of people in America. It was like the pre 9/11, because after 9/11 everybody kind of
Came together.
bonded together.
Yeah.
And that was the same thing after that, where things were kind of dark times, and then all of a sudden, people were felt freer. They were out more. They were talking more. There just seemed to be more opportunities coming up in all different fields. I mean, it was just an interesting time. To speak for now, I don't know. I'm not really out as much.
You're out there.
I'm not out there as much as I was when I was in 20s and 30s. So you guys can speak probably more about opportunities going now.
I think what I wanted to say when you brought that up, I think for us nowadays, it's not necessarily not putting your eggs all in one basket. It's about putting your eggs in one moment. So it's like we have to like jump from moment to moment in our lives nowadays. I was talking to my parents about owning a house. It's damn near impossible for us to own a house right now. In our situation, most people that are our age working right now, it's really tough to depending on where you want to be. If you want to be, in the middle of the country in Kentucky or something, it's a little easier to go and own a house there. But if you want to be in the major cities, it's going to be damn near impossible to own the type of house that you want to own in a good area and things like that. So I think for us, it's a lot more of not necessarily not putting all of your eggs in one basket. It's about, okay, this is what I'm doing right now. For instance, the podcast sprouted out of this want for George and I just to talk to one another. And when we do it, we're all in and doing it in this moment, right? So it's like, all right, we know we're doing this. We're going to do it all the way. And it's fun for us, too. That's the other thing. I think we have to be dictated a lot more directed a lot more by curiosity than we're lucky enough to not have to be directed by necessity.
Yeah.
So we're very blessed to be able to not have to do things out of necessity because of whatever reason, the time that we were born, where we were born, and things like that. So it's a lot more curiosity. So it's interesting just listening to you do all these things, and even though and doing your due diligence and going after this and doing that, it's very inspiring, honestly, because it shows you that even though you think you're in one place for a certain amount of time, there's always going to be an opportunity that presents itself later on. Now, a question that I did have, and then we'll get into what I wanted to talk about after, but did these opportunities present themselves because of people you knew? Because you were putting yourself out there? How did they come about? Was it always through referrals? Was it always through like friends that presented these opportunities to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely because I was out there. And I mean, obviously, working at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, you're talking about thousands and thousands of people you come in contact with. Same thing with the bar. I mean, I was coming into contact with thousands of people. So there were just all types of people would come in and approach me with different ideas and different investment possibilities. And, it's just, I'm just exposed to so many people in so many different fields.
Before phones.
Owning that bar, because at some point, everybody in the city's coming in there.
That's what's changed, I think, specifically for our day and age, is that everything is phones now, right? So Instagram is a way of being exposed to all of these people and people approaching you and talking to you, social media, all these things. However, it's not the natural progression of conversation face to face where somebody talks to you and then you're able to kind of get there. Sometimes a message, two messages, and it's hard to, at least for myself, I'm just speaking for myself, it's hard to gauge where somebody wants to go because it's all these, quick fixes of conversations and things like that. And on one hand, you can say that the small talk has been eradicated, but on the other hand, it's hard to get a gauge for somebody because you don't feel that natural thing. That's at least where I feel.
Everything's gone remote. It's much more difficult now. I have much harder time selling with my notification service now because I used to be able to call on the phone to a company and get a person. Now it's almost impossible to get a person. They're all working remotely somewhere, and you have to leave a message. You can't call. They're not in the office ever. It's really become difficult.
Okay, that's a perfect. It's like you're doing the podcast for us. Yeah. That was perfect transition.
Wait till you get my bill.
This is pro bono. I don't know if anybody told you that. This is pro bono. So let's talk about the notifications.
Definitely pro bono.
Let's talk about the notification service. Okay, when did it start? Because that I also don't know. What year did you get into this business? And then we'll talk about what it is and all that. Was it when you were in Chicago?
Yes, in 2008.
Okay, and how did you get into this business?
Actually, right after a friend of mine passed away, a friend of mine and a friend of the person who passed away approached me with this idea that he had. And one of the idea came about from an episode that my friend who had just passed away, his name was Myron, who had just passed away. About a year earlier, Myron had an episode where he ended up in the emergency room, and Myron lived alone and had a dog, and he was unable to communicate. He was delirious. He was out of it. And the hospital had no way to contact anybody to take care of his pet. And it was hours and hours and hours before they were able to track somebody down to get somebody to take care of his pet. So that was the first germ of the idea that got into my friend Tim. Tim Lally is the president of my notification service. That got him thinking about, well, what happens when people go to the ER? How would the ER know who to contact? And especially if you have responsibilities like taking care of a child or pet or whatever, somebody needs to be notified for that. So he approached me with the idea, and I said, let me do some research and see what's going on with this. And I did some research, and the first statistic I came across was that the national average to notify a family member of a medical emergency was 6 hours.
Wow.
And I was going, that makes no sense. I go, everybody's got a cell phone. Everybody's got email. I go, how the heck can it take 6 hours to notify somebody? Well, then I started doing the research on it, and I realized that there was some good reason, and the main reason was that nobody had a landline anymore.
Yeah.
And what the protocol for a hospital has always been, and again, this is the worst case scenario when somebody's unconscious or unable to communicate, the hospital would always be able to take the person's driver's license and call 411, and they would be able to get a phone number. Because in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, everybody had a phone. 95% of those people had their number listed. It was maybe only 5% had an unlisted number. So at least they could at least make a phone call. And back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, where most of the housewives were staying home, or somebody was staying home, they could at least get a hold of somebody. Well, now all of a sudden, you're talking about 70% of the country not having a landline anymore. They have a cell phone. Well, that cell phone isn't listed on 411. So a hospital has your driver's license, and you have a cell phone, you don't have a landline, there's no information they could get. By law, they're not allowed to go into your cell phone, but even if they do, a lot of people were password protecting their phones, so they couldn't get in there anyway. In fact, you guys probably wouldn't remember this because you're too young, but in 06-07, they ran a national program in the country called ICE. In case of emergency, they asked everybody in the country, they ran this for a year, to put ICE in their cell phone with a contact number, so that in the event police, responders, emergency responders could at least go into your phone and call one person.
Oh, look at that.
He got it. Excellent. He has. I still have it on my phone. They stopped promoting that because it became obvious. It became evident pretty soon that with the smartphones coming on the market and people password protecting their phone, that they couldn't get in it. anyway, so it was kind of a moot point to have it. Yeah. But it was a big issue. So I did research that, number one, once you don't have a landline, there's no phone number for them to get. Mm-hmm. Number two, there were 100 million people in the country. 1/3 of the country were single. So even if you have a phone number, if you're the single guy on the stretcher, what good is a phone number? You're calling their house, there's nobody there. Then you got another 100 million, and this is out of 300 million, so another 100 million, another third of the country, 2-income households. So both people are working. So even if they had a phone number, the best they could do is leave a message. And that person might not get the message till they get home for 6 hours. So all of a sudden I'm going, well, you know what? Now it's starting to make sense why there's a 6-hour leeway. You know, why people can't get a hold of somebody. So we started thinking, what would be the solution? Well, the solution would be, number one, letting the hospital have a way to call somebody who's got a multiple list of people that need to be called on your behalf. So what we did is we worked with the American College of Emergency Physicians, and we worked with a gentleman by the name of Todd Hoffman who trains EMTs. And we talked to these people and we figured out all the hospital protocols. And all the hospitals' protocols and all the EMT protocols. And every EMT worldwide is trained, and the hospital is trained. At some point, they're going to go for your photo ID. They're going to get your license. Number one, they need to identify you. They're going to always need to identify you. Mm-hmm. So what we did is we got a sticker system. You know, I should have had that with me. But we designed a sticker system.
I was going to say, do you have the sticker?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to have to go grab it.
Where would the people put the sticker on, like in their wallet?
Go get it so they can see it. Yeah, go get it so they can see it.
Interesting.
I'm telling you, bro.
I was ready for all this.
I know. I could see your face while he's talking, and I see the George Michael, like the wheel rolling in the George Michael brain while you're listening to all of it. It's true.
Yep.
All right, so what we did is we designed a system where you would have a sticker. Let's see.
I remember those, yeah.
All right, and
You
this
showed me
sticker.
that too. I remember last time I saw you. Yep.
Now, one thing we did is that blue star there in our logo. That is called the Star of Life. That's the international symbol for emergency medical. So any EMT, hospital, whatever, just sees that, they're going to know it has to do with a medical emergency. So what we did is we got permission to place these stickers on 50 state driver's licenses. And what we do is once we're called, our call center does two things. We can send your medical information to any hospital in the world in minutes. And obviously that's going to help your treatment. And then number two, we can notify up to 9 contacts. Now, in a hospital situation, the hospital is only going to notify one person. Yep. They're not an operator. So, in a lot of cases, if they're only calling one person, it might be an issue because let's say you're a single parent and you have a pet and you have a child to pick up. That person that gets called might have no idea what needs to be done on your behalf. So we thought it would be a good idea to have multiple people notified and that you set it up and you can set up special instructions. So, you know, they can go in and let's say it's a Tuesday and you're responsible for picking up your child on Tuesday and Thursday and, you know, somebody else, the other parent, picks them up on other days. You can put specific notes in that if it's on a Tuesday, this person has to be specifically notified to pick up my child. This person has to be notified to take care of my pet. This person has to be notified about my job. So whatever it is. So what we
Is there a website? Is there like a profile that somebody goes online and fills all this out? Where does somebody go and fill it out?
They log into their account on our website and they set it up and it's all, we have templates set up. So all they have to do is type in the information. It'll say doctor, medical conditions, medications you're taking, herbal supplements you're taking, insurance information, everything's laid out, and then the person just has to go in and set up their account. In fact, we'll promote it at the end, but I set up a promo code, CafeCon, all one word, and that will give any of your millions and millions of listeners and viewers. That will give them 75% off on our services, and it will pay you guys a 50% commission.
Wow.
Let's go.
Before we carry on, though, I do want to say,
We can promote that later.
we do have a lot of stories on here that are feel good and I think very inspirational. But this might be the first one that it's like on a very, I wouldn't say the word's not practical. I would say on a very utilitarian or like very, like this is saving lives. So like the fact that you're on here talking about it and we're able to plug it, I think that's a big thing. Like,
I agree.
It's bigger than this podcast, you know. And
Actually, I wanted to ask you guys: have either of you have any personal involvement in a situation where you guys ended up in the ER?
Oh yeah.
oh yeah,
I know you've had. I know Isaac's had.
Yeah.
Was it appendicitis?
Yeah, I had appendicitis and my diverticulitis.
yeah. Isaac's
Yeah.
taking me to the ER when I was in Orlando. I had stomach
Yeah.
issues before he started having stomach issues, so definitely.
If you've had any personal experience in the ER, you know how absolutely crazy it is.
Well,
when you
and
get to the ER.
especially if you're the one that's in pain, that was the other thing. Is like you have to fill out everything, and if you are in distress, and it's so you can't do anything until you fill out that paperwork. They won't do anything
Sucks.
to you unless you are incapacitated. When I had my diverticulitis, I remember specifically, and I know that they're just doing their jobs, but I remember like they said, well, you have to fill this out and then we'll come and talk to you. I'm literally writhing in pain, not even able to open my eyes. I have tears streaming down my face, and my dad was telling the people, can you just take him back and give him pain meds? I'm his father. Please take him back. Please take him back. And the woman would just look at him and say, sir, we can't do anything until he's filled out the paperwork. And my dad was getting pissed because he was worried about me. And I was just saying, just let me fill it out, please. Because it was horrendous. So, yes, it's chaotic. When you
Yeah.
go to the ER, it's never a calm environment for anyone involved. I can only imagine
and
on the other side.
That protocol is a pain in the ass because you just want to get treatment and they have to have you do paperwork. I always say we designed our service for the worst case scenario, which is, God forbid you're unconscious, God forbid you can't communicate. In that case, that's where we really shine because you don't have to communicate. All they have to do is make the call, and we have an ID card. See, I put the license in my wallet, and then right behind it, I have an ID card.
Oh, we can't. Yeah, there you go.
Like
Russell,
that.
I wanted to ask, what was the time period from the inception of the idea to actually like executing it and making it like to the public, accessible to the public?
Within a year.
Okay, wow, that's quick.
Within a year. Tim did a lot of research beforehand, and then he brought me in, and I got things moving. I found because he was actually printing stickers up on his computer, and I said, no, we got to get professional stickers. We need a sticker, somebody that knows how to make them. They got to be waterproof.
Yeah.
They got to be, they got to be able to be seen in low light. They got to have a lot of things. You got to have a professional sticker on there. So I came in, and then I started doing the marketing and sales, and we got bolting pretty quickly.
Have you always been this way, like at a young age, thinking of? Because this sounds like I think this is the aspect people don't understand about entrepreneurial mind. It's like not coming up with the idea. It's like the tentacles that idea needs to solve the problems that are going to be awaiting within that realm of the problem, right? There's problems within problems. So like, did you always have this mind of, okay, well, I have an idea, but now you're just naturally thinking of other things that are going to come with that problem that you're trying to solve?
I've always tried to. I mean, growing up, I did a lot of reading.
Okay.
And I think I just always had a curious mind.
Okay.
And I always thought it was always a good idea that if you're going to start something and you're going to work on it, that you sit down and you spend time doing your due diligence and trying to think of everything good and bad. I always thought it was important to play the devil's advocate. What could go wrong, what might go wrong, and then how are we going to address those things so that they don't go wrong. I can tell you that Tim Lally, who's the president, he spent a ton of time doing this. And he really did an excellent job because I'll tell you a quick story is we have a on our sticker, we have a code number down here.
Yep.
So all of the people are identified by a code number because I don't want them to tell me that Dave Smith's in the hospital because I could have 55 Dave Smiths in my thing.
That's true.
So everybody needs to be done by an ideal code number. Now we have a special sticker that goes on the car, that goes on your car window. And the reason we did that is car accidents is still the number one reason people get rushed to the ER. So Tim designed the sticker and he didn't have a code number on there. And I go, well, why aren't you going to put the code number on there? And he goes, well, what if you lend out your car? What if it's a family that, multiple people are using the same car? Also, in a lot of accidents, when people get thrown out of the car, they don't even know who's driving. Yeah. He goes, that's a good way to misidentify somebody. And at the same time, I was doing some research and I saw a couple of stories in the paper of, people that had been in accidents and went to the hospital. There was one of these two girls, and one girl died, and the other girl was horribly disfigured from the accident, and they misidentified them. And when they called their families, the family came to the hospital thinking their daughter was in the hospital, but it was the girl who had died. Yeah. And vice versa. They told the family that her daughter had died, and she was in one of the hospital. And there were a few stories like that. And so that was the reason he goes, yeah, we can't put a code number on there. What we'll do is we'll put on the thing, on the sticker, we'll say, look at their driver's license for their code number. So he put it on that. And I never would have thought of that. I would have put the code number on the sticker. But he was smart enough to do due diligence and look at other issues that had come up and things that might happen. And that's one of the worst things in my industry for me. I can't misidentify anybody. I don't want to send the wrong medical information. Yeah. I don't want to notify the wrong family. That can be devastating. So it's really important when you're doing any sort of business or any project you're doing, is look at both sides of the coin. Look at the positive things that are going to happen and really focus on the things that could go wrong and what you can do ahead of time to troubleshoot those and minimize those.
That's true intelligence right there. I've said it before to Isaac. I've heard somewhere where someone said the true definition of intelligence is being able to withhold two contrasting or contradicting ideas in your mind, like the pros and cons, and trying to understand both of them.
That's true.
But now that you're saying all these add-ons of things to kind of fix the blind spots, right? Did you guys have all of this already to go when you were going to go public with this thing, or was it as with time this was already a product and then you guys had it, these were add-ons over time?
We were ready to roll pretty much with everything, but I will tell you there were a couple of other services before we started that were doing it. Okay. But they had a lot of flaws in them, and there were most of them would only notify one person.
Mm-hmm. Those operate just like an ER.
And again, Tim said, well, that could make the person that's getting notified, that could be their emergency now because they might not need to know who to contact on your behalf. So that's why we went ahead and made it available to notify up to 9 people. That was kind of overkill. Another competitor had the code number of the person on the automobile window sticker. Okay. And Tim had looked at that and said, that's just not a good idea.
No.
Another competitor, they had their call center in California. They only had one call center. Well, that's a big earthquake zone. That could be a big problem. So we actually went with a call center that had 8 call centers. And actually now they have 22 call centers now, because if something happens at one call center, I need them to be able to roll it to another call center. I can't rely on one call center.
Wow.
So if something happens, my main call center's over in Kansas City. That's the closest one to us in Chicago. If something ever happens weather-wise or technically, they'd notify us that our calls are being rolled to the next closest call center.
Wow. So how can people find you guys? Like, where can people sign up for this? For people that are interested in this service, what's the natural progression of steps that they need to take in order to be able to get enrolled in My Notification?
Well, hopefully you can put up a link somewhere.
Yeah, we will.
But our website is mynotify.com. 1, and that's the numeral 1, so it's MYNOTIFY, the numeral 1.com, mynotify1.com. And then there's a thing on the top of the page where they can click up sign up. We offer like 4 different plans. We have a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan, a 5-year plan, and then there's a family plan for up to 6 people. And they can go in there and they can use the promo code CafeCon.
Yes.
They can
That's
put it in lowercase, uppercase, however case you want it. It'll work. And that'll give them 75% off of our retail prices. So it'll cost at most $15 for a year.
Wow.
All the way down to about $8 a year if they buy a multiple plan. So it's pretty inexpensive. But it's whether they do my service or your service or any other service. Have you guys? I meant to ask you this too. Have you guys set up your phones?
Yes. For the emergency contact with everything in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember you asked me this, and I showed you. And you're like, okay, a lot of people don't have it.
Because
set up, right?
every phone now has an emergency call thing, and I have a thing for medical. And everybody should be setting that up. So many people don't think about it. You should have your medical information. You should have your emergency information. And the reason we promote that is, look, I love people to have my service, but the more precautions you take, the better off you are. The reason I don't like just relying on the phone is in a lot of cases in a medical emergency, the phone doesn't make it in, especially car accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More often than not, in a serious car accident, the phone does not make it into the ER. It is not the EMT's responsibility to go look for the phone. Their responsibility is to take care of you, get you stabilized, get you to the hospital. It's the police later on that are going to be looking for the phone. So we promote twofold. We tell everybody, write your information on a card and put it in your wallet. I don't care, but at least do something to prepare, because so few people do. And it's a sad fact is, I forget how many people, there were 140 million people last year rushed to the ER.
Wow.
In the United States. Now, that's a third of the country, but it's
wild.
Not really true as far as it's saying a third of the country, because many people get rushed multiple times.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the accurate
or it could be
number,
for people visiting, foreigners, whatever. It could be a lot of people.
Using it, whatever. But it's a lot of people. A lot of people get rushed to the ER. And the one thing I say that everybody has in common that gets rushed to the ER, when you woke up that morning, you did not expect to be rushed to the ER.
Yeah.
That's why they call it medical emergency. You don't expect it to happen. But so few people ever think about it preparing in advance. I mean, there's Life Alert, which is a fantastic system. Both my parents had it. That's designed for the people at a very high risk. You might fall in your home. You have your Life Alert system. The average person who's 20, 30, 40 and doesn't have medical issues, they're not going to get a Life Alert system.
Right.
They don't need a Life Alert system. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be prepared for a medical emergency, because those are people that still end up in the ER every day, whether it's a stroke, an accident, a heart attack, a car accident. And they never think about it. And God forbid you have responsibilities like picking up a child, taking care of your pet. You don't want that taken care of 6 or 8 hours later. So we've been really trying hard to promote that just prepare for an emergency. It's not that hard. It doesn't take that long. But man, it could save your life, number one, certainly by having your medical information sent to the ER. And it can save your family.
Yes.
It can save your family.
That's what I was about to bring up, is that I'm just thinking about it from the family's perspective, being notified. Because you're right, the ER just notifies one emergency contact.
Their job's done when they do that.
And their job is done. And then their job is to take care of you,
Yeah.
and nobody knows that you're there or whatever. So just having all the help that can possibly happen, God forbid, Sky or I, this happens to us out here, it could notify our people, out out east where we're from, and those people then know our lives out here, know how to help us, know how to take care of us. They know we have a dog. It just is so, I think, beneficial more than anything. It's just smart.
You mentioned, like when you were in the hospital and you were in all this pain, they want you to fill out paperwork. It's the same thing with answering questions. Now, like I said, my system is designed for the worst case scenario.
Right.
But 99% of our situations, the person is conscious. They're not unconscious, but they had a heart attack, they had a car accident. When those things happen, you have tremendous adrenaline rushes.
Yes.
Your mind gets fuzzy. It's very hard to focus. You immediately, your car gets totaled and you're on a stretcher. You might not immediately think of what has to be taken care of, that I need to have my dog taken care of. I need my child picked up. My boss needs to be notified. You're not going to feel like answering questions about what your medications are. So that's where my service really shines too, because nobody wants to be answering those questions on this, when they're lying on the stretcher.
That's beautiful.
So
this really hits home
really
for me
important.
because this is a while ago, over 10 years ago, I had a cousin that got in a really bad car accident at like early in the morning, like 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and we were all, I think, in Colorado skiing, and the crash was so bad that she got, I think, helicopter to the hospital, but her wallet and belongings were just scattered all over the crash site. And the person that found her in that crash site, because the car flipped a couple times, like 2 days later, they were like, God was telling them to go back to the crash site, and that person found my cousin's identification. So she was in the hospital for well over a day or two, and nobody knew who she was. So, like this, I mean, obviously, it would have helped to have something like this, because then they probably would have identified her quicker. But the fact that she didn't have any ID on her makes me think of that. Of like, imagine being in the hospital for that long and no one's there to go see you.
Yeah, bro.
The girl that designed our logo, when she was in college, she had appendicitis as well. She ended up in the hospital for 3 days, delirious. Her parents, they didn't have any information to notify anybody.
Wow.
Her parents did not find out she was in the hospital until she left the hospital.
Wow.
I got a ton of stories like that.
Oh man,
I bet.
we'll put a link. We're gonna put a link in the bio at the very end. Where people can find the episode and they can see it.
Hey, when we hit the 50-minute mark, I was like, this has been the fastest 50 minutes I think
It
I've
has
ever
gone
felt,
by.
in a good way though. Like we hit the ground running from the get. We really did.
That's 100%, dude. I'm telling you, you're right, George. This has been like one of the ones that have been utilitarian's a great way of describing it, but it's also like it's just very incredible. So, all right, that's. Do you have anything else to say about my notification service?
I could spend all day on medical emergencies, but we can move on.
Well, I want to get to the healing sounds of music, because that's the
Yeah.
other part. I think that this is where you and George are going to have a good conversation regarding this. So
We spoke about it briefly, I remember.
Yeah. Well, what do you know? Let's flip it. What do you remember anything about it, George? Before we ask Russell what it's about.
We spoke about it last time we saw each other at your parents' house.
Yeah.
No, it was the time before that maybe, or it was the last time?
No, it was the last time.
It was the last time, right? By the
Yeah,
bar.
when you guys were cross-dressing.
Something like that.
That's a good little
Someone put
Easter egg.
something- Yeah, someone put something in my drink. I don't know what happened after.
There's
Yeah,
pictures.
you brought up to me. I remember you told me you've been wanting to chat about it with me about more or less, and I'll let you go into more detail because it was a fuzzy night. But you basically told me how you guys use music therapy, for lack of better words, for
That's
certain.
the perfect word. It's
And
music therapy.
I come from a world of, I wouldn't say music therapy, but I would say brand awareness through music. So, which are similar, but they both have different purposes and uses. So, when you brought that up to me, I was like, well, we need to get you on the pod, because music has done so much for me in my life, and I can only imagine what that does for certain people. Because I've been sort of hip to music therapy, but I don't know the full extent of it. Because I had told Isaac there was a kid in our school that his older sister got into that field, so I was kind of interested in it and doing it, but I didn't know much about it. So, what was your?
Is she in South Florida, George? By the way, is she in South Florida?
I think so. I'm not sure.
All right, because maybe I could connect her with you, Russell, because she and she plays music, right?
She played the clarinet, I think.
Okay. Anyways,
in other instruments. Yeah.
so what is the Healing Sounds of music?
So Healing Sounds it's a nonprofit organization. My father actually started it in 2018 when he was 86 years old.
Wow.
And he's just grown up loving music, and he's always been involved in music. He doesn't play, can't sing a note, no musical ability whatsoever, but he always knew how music made him feel. And it was always less stress, less anxiety, happy. Those were the three main things. And he had started doing research, and he saw that there was a lot of research being done, and it was showing tremendous breakthroughs that researchers were having in assisting people with dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, and they were having tremendous breakthroughs with music and playing music. So he decided to start an organization where, at no cost to an assisted living facility or a hospice or a hospital, whatever, musicians would come in and play a free concert. So he started that in 2018. Unfortunately, he started getting sick soon after, and he passed away. Actually, we're coming up on his anniversary of April 9th. In 2019, he passed away. And I knew how passionate he was about it and how much he loved it, so I took it over. I was fortunate enough to connect to the right people that had a little bit of money and were able to donate some money to the organization, and I was able to expand it because at that point he was playing in one assisted living facility in Boca, and he was playing there on a monthly basis, and they were just getting tremendous response from the people there. Everybody's like, "Whoa, when are you coming back? I've never felt like this. This music just makes me feel great." And so forth. So I was able to raise some money. I expanded into about 6 or 7 different facilities, and I was just getting this tremendous feedback. I had some situations where people would come to the concert, and these were people found out later on that never spoke, and all of a sudden they were talking, and they were sharing their experiences with music, and I was seeing that some of the aides were having like tears in their eyes when they were explaining this because this person never communicates, and then all of a sudden they're communicating. Wow. And you look in the audience and everybody's smiling when the music's playing, they're tapping their feet, they're snapping their fingers. And I've heard from just about every facility that our program is the best program that they have in their facility, and they all have entertainment. Every assisted living facility brings in entertainment to assist with helping people and just keeping people busy and having them something to do. And every one of them said that this is the most meaningful program we have in the organization.
What kind of music are they playing? Is it classical music? Because I've heard
for the most part it's classical, but I hired, and actually my dad hired him. He was friends. My dad was actually president of the Florida Philharmonic, and he actually helped start the Boca Sinfonia with another gentleman. And one of the people that played in there, a gentleman by the name of Jeff Kay, who was the first trumpet in the Florida Philharmonic. He was going to be the artistic director because he's got the connection to the musicians. So I just let him. I set up the times and the places, and then I tell him when and where we're going to be, and then I let him handle who he's going to hire as far as and the program he's going to set up. But for the most part, it's mostly classical, but a lot of it is pop, jazz, blues. We pretty much hit every genre, but it has been shown that classical music is probably the best for cognitive. Yeah. In fact, they have something, I believe it's called the Mozart effect, where they've shown where just listening to 15 minutes of Mozart helps the spatial. I need to double check on this, but it's the spatial temporal reasoning in the brain, and that's the part of the reasoning that helps with math and puzzles.
What? I mean, it kind of makes sense. When I'm working, I'll put on classical music just in the background, and I'll just start working after that because it helps to, I don't even know, whatever. I come at it, see, the type of music thing that I come from, I'm rereading one of my acting books, my many acting books that I have, but it helps for me to, my brain kind of goes into a different dimension. For lack of a better way of describing it, sounds hoity-toity.
Like an intuitive dimension.
Yeah, it starts, when I listen to classical music with no words, specifically like Beethoven, Chopin, whatever, those kinds of things, it makes me flow differently and allow for emotions to kind of flow through. I mean, just connections to happen in my brain, for lack of a better term. Feels like light bulbs are a lot easier to go off. So that's very interesting.
They have proven that classical music can improve accuracy, speed in performing tasks that require concentration.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whereas the things like the white noise and brown noise and nature sounds, those are great for reducing anxiety and
I sleep
reducing
to brown
stress.
noise. I put on brown noise to sleep.
I have my phone on every night I have that, and on the other side I have Alexa, and they're both playing heavy rain sounds, cat purring sounds. I have stereo going, but it does work.
I mean, that was my go-to in college. While everyone was doing Adderall, coffee was my Adderall. So I was never a big coffee drinker growing up. So the times I would have it, I would go into superhero mode with that and classical music. If I had to write an essay or pull an all-nighter, I literally felt superhuman. Like I knew I was going to get that essay done that night. It's just something about it that there's no lyrics. It's not like the music doesn't make you feel like you're in a rabbit hole. It makes you feel like you're elevating like a flow state. It makes you feel smarter.
Absolutely.
It makes you feel just way more polished in the mind. I mean,
it was
there's
made
nothing like
so
it, man.
long ago. That's the other thing that blows my mind is that music, and with the instruments that they had back then in comparison to today's instrumentation, is insane to me.
Ahead of its time.
Insane.
That's what blows my mind about, and anybody, you don't have to speak the same language, you don't have to be from the same place, you can be from completely different sides of the world, not understanding each other's words at all, and you sit them down and they listen to that music and they're all connected. It's like this shared, we can all share in the connection of music, which is such a beautiful thing. And that trumpet player is amazing. The one that you have, Jeff K, I've heard him play a few times. Oh man, he's so good.
I played the trumpet in middle school.
You do.
In French
horn, baby.
Beautiful instrument.
Me too. Cornet.
Nice. I mean, Isaac, that's the reason why these composers, Wolfgang, all these people were touring all of Europe, and then when they would show up to a city, they treated them like kings because this music was just out of this world. I think a lot of these guys were put on this earth, obviously, just to do this. I think of a very, in lack of better words, godsend, like to do the things they did. And it's nothing like classical music, man. I still love it to this day. To me, that's the most highest order of music, I think.
Has to be purest form of music.
It's ridiculous.
It's so
bro.
pure. So how many concerts are you guys doing, Russell? That's what I wanted to ask.
I
didn't mean to cut you off.
We generally do about two or three a month.
Okay.
Wow.
And is it mainly in the Boca area up there?
Actually, they're almost all in Boca Del Rey area.
Okay.
Pretty much. I'm still obviously I'm trying to raise more money. It's all about the more money I can raise, the more facilities I can.
Yeah. How can people help? That's what I was going to ask. That was my next
They
question.
can go to Healing Sounds of Music, all one word. Healing Sounds
we'll
of
put that in the
Music.
bio as well.
And there's a thing on there that they can see how to donate and help us.
Healing Sounds of Music.
I was always overthinking it. I thought music therapy was like a series of musical like exercises or methods, but it's really just playing music for people, right?
It really comes down to just playing music. I mean, I was actually surprised that when you think about music, or actually when you think about what's good for the brain, I wouldn't have thought that listening to music would have been the thing that would trigger more areas of the brain than anywhere else. I would have thought I think if you ask most people to say what's best for the mind and the brain and cognitive thought, they might think, well, doing a crossword puzzle where you have to concentrate more, or reading where you're concentrating on the spoken word as well as you're kind of thinking of the scenes that are playing out during the story, which certainly can take a lot. But it's actually, music triggers more areas of the brain than any other activity. Any other activity that
I was literally talking to my brother-in-law about that yesterday. That
it's really quite remarkable.
Yeah, we were watching a video on Instagram, and it was like a heartfelt one, and he was like, man, even before the video really got going, it's the music. And I'm like, dude, music is the invisible dictator of emotions, honestly. Like, imagine watching a video that's supposed to be heartfelt and it's on mute. It's not going to hit the same way.
Not going to hit the same way.
That's true.
Yeah, that's one of the...
I mean, Isaac, you know about films. Like, music and sound in the background, it
changes everything.
That's what someone was saying the other day on our podcast. I think it was Jonas. He was like, I need to get the sound right. Like, the visual is also important, but if you need to compromise between the two, like, you can't compromise sound.
Agreed.
Like, we're visual beings, but sound's just super important.
Yeah, the areas of the brain that deal with emotion are very tied together. And obviously, the variety of memory regions, it's quite remarkable what they're doing. People with dementia, they make these personalized playlists, and the memories, they're able to remember things that they couldn't remember a second ago once the music tied in. I like to use Tony Bennett as a perfect example.
Yes.
I mean, he was diagnosed in 2016 with Alzheimer's. He continued to play till 2021. He had it so bad off stage. His son said that when he would finish a performance and get off stage, he couldn't even remember that he just performed.
Whoa.
Wow.
But when he was on stage playing music, he never forgot a word, never forgot a lyric. I think you recall that he was performing with Lady Gaga for a while back in 2021. When off stage, he couldn't remember her name or anything about her. On stage, never forgot her name, could recite everything, her songs. Yeah. It never missed a beat. I mean, it's tremendous, the benefit that the music has on the memory. I'm sure you both have had the experiences where you listen to a song and it instantly transports you back. I mean, there's so many songs that I first heard in camp. I'll hear that song and I'll immediately be back there. When I was 16, every day before school one year, me and another friend of mine, we would go to our friend's house because his parents both worked. We'd sit in his bedroom, we'd get stoned up the bejesus, and we would play 4 Led Zeppelin songs and 2 Grateful Dead songs, and we played like the same songs every day. Whenever I hear those songs now, I am immediately back in his bedroom. Yeah. Immediately.
And it's a good cognitive memory.
Yeah.
It's usually always great memories
your mind.
that they bring back.
Yeah.
It's really amazing how that memory is tied to music.
I heard a recent study that dementia is not that you forget things, it's just your brain can't access, like the memories are still there, but your brain can't access them.
You can't access them.
They're just they're locked doors. So there's things like creatine, music, exercise, just things that you can do to help open those doors again. Because they thought for the longest that like those memories are just gone. It's not that. They're just not accessible anymore because of like a deficiency in the brain.
But if it's a memory that's been tied to music, those they can access. Yeah. It's like music actually can lay down a new memory like a soundtrack, and it'll help you just be able to recall that perfectly where you might not have been able to recall that in the past.
Well, like, there's a video that we're going to start wrapping this up momentarily. But there's a video that you sent me, Russell, that I've seen before as well, that we can even put that somewhere in the bio or whatever. But there's a video of the ballerina that was the prima ballerina for Swan Lake, right? And she has dementia and she has
Alzheimer's.
Wow. And then when she listens to it, she literally starts doing the dances and remembers everything perfectly when they start playing the music from Swan Lake. It's beautiful, beautiful video.
Tearjerker. Yes. Every time I watch it, I tear up. This is a performance she probably hadn't done in 50 years, and without the music, no possibility could she do that. And she was almost spot on, Isaac, right?
Yep.
She was almost spot on in in the wheelchair with the hand movements.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's really unbelievable.
Music is an unbelievable thing.
Yeah, and I was going to ask George if it might be unconsciously, because you've been dealing and working with music for so long, whether you think that this music or music, listening to music, producing music, has helped you cognitively.
Without a doubt, I would say, yeah, I think that's the thing that's kept my mind the sharpest. That and having a healthy lifestyle. I think those two things. I've been watching recent videos of how it's gonna sound random, a tangent I'm about to say, but like squatting or playing tennis and moving your lower body, and that putting your lower body under stress keeps your brain sharp as well, and using hand-eye coordination. And then I've obviously heard over the years it's music as well, because you have to be active listening, but then you can get a muscle memory where you're not active listening, so it's just streamlined. Like those people that we mentioned previously, like they don't remember anything until they hear the first couple notes, and then it takes them back to that. It's burned in their brain, the nostalgia, right? It's like when you smell something and it brings you back. I mean, I smell certain grasses, and I remember the time and place when I was 4 years old playing soccer early on. Like it's embedded in my brain. So I think that, like you said, to answer your question, yeah, it keeps your mind sharp, but it's like you're not even trying to keep your mind sharp, which is easy on the mind, right? Because there's certain times we might give like older people puzzles or things that like you have to take initiative to like keep the mind sharp, where really it's just your ears, you can't close them like your eyes, so it's just
Good point.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Keep going. Sorry.
So
I've never heard that before.
It's just like sound's super important, but it's very undermined because we can't see sound, you know? Like there's a thing called perfect pitch for kids, and it's usually like their parents are playing classical music for them when they're in their mother's womb. They're teaching them notes on the keyboard. And I mean, if you guys YouTube it now, there's kids that have perfect pitch. Like a parent will play like 9 random notes on the keyboard, and they'll tell them what notes they're playing. So I think to a certain point I have relative pitch, which is more of like, it's hard for me to sing off key. Like I have to sing in key of a song. Like it's, you know how people naturally sing off key? I can't really do that because I think I've just been around sound for my whole life since I was 3 years old.
Oh,
so.
I can certainly sing off key. That's not hard for me to do.
Like
Sky
it makes like it puts a light bulb in my head if I even think of singing off key. So it's like it's natural for me to sing in key. It won't be I don't have the nicest tone, don't get me wrong, but I'll sing in key, and it's a long-winded answer, obviously. But yeah, sound it keeps you so sharp, and then people have to be careful too, because you can damage your ears, and there's no coming back from that. Like thank God I got earplugs molded in my ears, because after a while I was just like, I need to get this. If not, like I'm gonna do damage to my ears, and there's no coming back from that. So
yeah, if you're DJing, I imagine you're listening at a very large, very high level.
Yeah.
And a very loud level.
Well, even BPM to a certain point, right?
Yep.
Like you can dictate how somebody's heart beats based on the music that you're doing, right?
Yep.
So they talk about this electronic music. And if you have your certain BPM that the actual song is going towards, it elicits people's hearts to beat faster or beat slower, so that they get that euphoric feeling, or they kind of come down. You can dictate a mood just by the literal beats per minute, right? In music. So
also ear and brain fatigue. Like I was up late last night making music with this AI where it gives you loops to use with, and I was wanting to make house music, so it thought I wanted to make like original house music or just chill house music at 120 BPM. And then I was like, let me put it at 126 because that's more like club, like more high energy. And my brain started getting brain fatigue just because it went up 6 BPM.
Interesting.
Because it's and then it's like you can't use certain kicks if it's that much faster, because it's like,
I don't know what that is. What's a kick?
Like a kick in a drum.
Okay.
Like, so it's like, if it's a fat kick, it's like there's less space in between one kick and the next one if it's 126 compared to 120
so like boom,
BPM.
boom, boom, boom.
Where if like it's 120, it's boom, boom, boom. So it's like, it's super important, the spaces in between things, the silence in between sounds. It's not so much the sounds themselves, it's the silence in between.
Really?
Whoa.
That's what really changes a lot. It's the things in between sounds that really make a song awesome.
Wow. I've never thought of that.
No, I've
First
never
off,
thought of that.
2 George Michaelisms in less than 3 minutes. That was insane.
A big time right
You
there.
can close your eyes, you can't close your ears. I have never heard that before in my entire life.
That's as true as it gets.
The silence in between sounds is what makes a song what it is, which I've never heard that either.
Never heard that,
bro. You got some bars right there, big dog. In 3 minutes, baby. Wow,
coffee, bro.
that was
Coffee was perfect
quick.
there.
That was quick. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up. Russell, you already know about our 2 questions, so I ain't got to explain it to you. My first one is my steel tissue question. Wipes away a drop of blood, wipes away a teardrop. So, resiliency and vulnerability. Again, you can make it as deep as you want, as shallow as you want. Don't matter. But give us some things that have made you equally resilient and vulnerable in your life.
It might get pretty deep.
Let's get
do
deep,
it.
baby.
Might get deep.
Let's
because
go.
I would have to say for both of those things, it would be the Landmark Forum.
Oh, okay. I know about this. Yes,
Now,
I
you
do
know a little bit about the
this.
forum.
Yep.
George Michael, do you know anything about the Landmark Forum?
A little bit, but let's do it. I need to know more.
Well, the forum is a personal growth seminar that I took. It was actually started by a guy named Werner Erhard back in about the late 60s, 70s. And it had a really negative connotation because it was basically something that he was taking people out in the woods somewhere and he was supposedly breaking them down until they were bubbling, crying messes and completely destroying them and then building them back up as fantastic human beings. And it was a lot of people thought it was a cult. It got a lot of negative press. I believe 60 Minutes did a expose on them. And it had a lot of negative baggage with it. But he repivoted, renamed it the Forum, and then opened again in the 80s. And then a company called Landmark Education came in and purchased it and redid the whole entire program. And it's probably a combination of common sense, and then what he's taken is he's sprinkled in a whole bunch of things from a lot of different religions, a lot of stuff from Buddhism, a lot of stuff from Zen, just a way of using spoken word to make your perspective shift for you to be able to push past any issues you're having. And I had a girlfriend who took it in about 1992 or so and had a tremendous amount of growth, and she wanted me to take it. And when I heard it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., and then a Tuesday night from 7 to 11 p.m., I said, thanks, but no thanks. And she gave me my walking papers. And we had kept in touch, and a couple of years later, I had just been going on and off with some depression issues. And I was kind of at my lowest point, and a lot of things going on. And I hark back to you guys did a great podcast last week with Roberto, and I know he was talking a lot about depression and things like that. He was going, you never know. You could be you look like you're acting and you have all these jobs and everything's looking great, but you never know what's going on in somebody's head. And, I had plenty of money. I had the #1 pool hall in Chicago. I had plenty of women. But I still was just kind of having a depression. I just couldn't get out of my own head. And I couldn't figure out what to do. So I kept thinking about the forum thing. So I contacted my ex-girlfriend. I said, how do I get into this thing? I said, it's only a weekend. What the hell? Well, worst comes to worst, I'll get nothing out of it. Well, I went, and it was really unbelievable. It's basically you're in a room with about 150 people, anywhere from 75 to 150 people. And you're talking about people from every walk of life. You're talking about people who are there just because they might need to figure out how to get a raise or a promotion, to people that are pre-divorce, post-divorce, in the middle of divorce, to people that are maybe thinking about ending it all. I mean, you got people from every walk of life. And they just have a way to use these exercises and using word triggers that are able to get you to look at things from a completely different perspective. And that was the problem I had always had. Two problems I'd had. One is I always had to be right. It's like I always had to be right, and that is a really bad trait because nobody is right all the time. You are not going to be right all the time, and to be able to admit you're not right has always been a difficult thing, and to be able to prove that you're not right is a difficult thing. So I was always having those issues with having to be right. And what the forum does is it's able to push past those things and see. I was never able to put myself in someone else's shoes. And that's really where you can see another perspective, is being able to turn yourself 180 and look at someone from other shoes. And the forum was really, really good at that. I'll give you a couple of examples. Probably one of the biggest that I got out of the forum was being able to let go of expectations. And I would get upset a lot when things weren't going my way. And the forum taught me that it is all based on expectation. Anything you're upset about is basically because you had some expectation that wasn't fulfilled. Whether it's you're getting in your car and you're turning the car and it doesn't start, because I expect when I get in my car every morning, I expect my car to start. Mm-hmm. When it doesn't start, you get upset. Mm-hmm. Just like I say, just anything. And when I really drill down on it, it's true. When I was thinking about it, any time I've ever been upset, I had some sort of expectation that didn't happen. And if you have no expectations, and it's not easy to do, it's very difficult to do, but if you had no expectation about anything, you would never be upset about anything. And you can think about it in your own lives. Think about it. If you expected nothing, whether it was you go out for dinner and you just had a bad meal, that just happens. If you go out and you pay a lot of money for a meal, you expect it to be great. Well, if it's not, you're going to be upset. Well, if you didn't have that expectation, if you just were going out and la-di-da, it is what it is. Sometimes the chefs have a bad day. Sometimes they get a bad cut of meat. You never know. If you had no expectation, you would never be upset about anything. It's a really, really powerful point.
Interesting.
The other thing, I'll give you one other point. Let's say, Isaac, what color is my shirt?
White.
George, what color is my shirt?
White.
What if I told you that my shirt is red?
Perspective.
I'd say you're wrong.
You would think probably either I'm lying,
Right.
number one, or I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Probably one of those two. Let's throw out lying. Because if I'm lying, it is in fact white. But let's explore the fact that I'm looking at my shirt and my shirt is red, and you think my shirt is white. Completely different. And you know what? I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole here.
Let's go.
Let's go down a tangent. And my tangent's gonna kind of gonna come back to my red and white shirt. Seinfeld. I know we've talked a little bit about Seinfeld.
Yes.
Isaac, you have some familiarity, but you haven't watched many episodes, correct?
Correct.
George, are you familiar with Seinfeld at all? Have you seen
I've
some episodes?
Some episodes, but not a lot.
The one reason I recommend that show above all, it probably is the funniest comedy of all times, number one. But number two, it really was a show kind of about nothing. And when they say about nothing, it was kind of a lot about things that can happen on a daily basis in everybody's life that really aren't a big deal, but can turn out impactful. I mean, they did an entire show early on about waiting for a table in a Chinese restaurant. They did an entire show about couldn't find their car. The car was misplaced in a parking lot, in a parking garage. I mean, they did a lot of that, and I can't tell you how many times over the years things happen, and it just immediately relates to a Seinfeld episode. So, and the other reason good to see is that you should watch it is as an actor, Isaac. Mm-hmm. The Jerry Seinfeld's not really an actor; he's a stand-up comic,
Yeah.
but he did very well. But the other three characters,
Costanza,
Elaine, and Kramer.
Yep.
Just absolutely brilliant actors.
Yep.
They came in with characterizations that were unique, just brilliantly done, the way they meshed together. I mean, just from an acting standpoint, probably one of the best ensembles ever. You have to agree, you're not going to have a hit show. I don't care how good the writing is. If you don't have a good cast that can
100%.
That can
100.
Bring that vision out, it's not going to be a hit. You're not going to go 9 years and how many ever episodes there were.
100%.
So it's difficult. So just from that perspective, you might want to watch it because the acting, those guys are absolutely brilliant.
Jason Alexander changed my way of thinking about acting, but that's a whole other tangent. I took a master class with him one day, and he changed a lot of the way that I see acting.
Oh, I didn't know you knew him.
I don't know him, but it was over Zoom.
Oh, okay. So. You know, my cousin was in a movie with him.
No, I did. Graham? No, I didn't know that.
The movie Dunstan Checks Out, where they're in a hotel with a monkey.
I didn't know that.
Jason was his father.
Oh, Graham's a great guy.
His
Very
son.
nice
so
guy.
You should check out that movie.
All right.
So anyway, let's get back to, there was a Seinfeld episode where Kenny Rogers opened up a chicken place across from his building. Did you know Kenny Rogers used to have chicken places?
No,
I didn't know.
Kenny Rogers Roasters back in the 90s. He had a whole chain of them. So he opens up a chicken place, and he has a huge Kenny Roasters neon sign on the top of the building that's right across from Kramer's apartment. And it is so bright neon that even when Kramer has his shades drawn, his entire apartment is just bathed in red neon. In fact, when Jerry goes to the door through his peephole, there's a red laser coming out. And they open the door, and Jerry's like thrown back from the thing, and Kramer's just standing there because by this time he's just used to it. He's been in there for a couple of days, and it's just like nothing. So, cut to the next scene. Kramer runs into Jerry's apartment like he always does, and he's always stealing food. He pours himself a bowl of cereal, goes into Jerry's refrigerator, pulls out this pitcher of red liquid, pours it in, and takes a spoonful, and before Jerry can say anything, he spits it out, and Jerry goes, "That's tomato juice." And Kramer goes, "I thought that was milk." He goes, "My rods and cones are all screwed up from the neon light." So, bringing that full circle, I say my shirt is red. Now, you don't know that maybe I've been in a neon light. Maybe something's wrong with my eyes.
Your environment.
My environment. You just don't know. So going back to the forum, circling back on it, that was one of the things. If someone were to tell me their shirt was red and they're wearing a white shirt, I would argue till death do me part that they're lying or they're crazy. And they might be crazy, but the other thing is they might have an affliction. They might have something in their eyes that makes them see white as red, but you don't know that. And, another thing, like Roberto was saying, you just don't know what's going on in other people's minds. You just never know. So in the forum, that really freed me up to be able to look at other perspective, thinking that I just have no idea what they're seeing. And even though it's clear to me, it's 100% clear to me that I'm wearing a white shirt. There can be no question about it. From what their perspective is, it could be a red shirt. And I can't dispute that because I'm not in their head. And that was one of the biggest lessons in the forum, was it allowed me to completely turn 180 degrees and stand in their shoes and see exactly why they might think what they might think. And that was really powerful with the forum.
So, man, there's so many questions that we could go down based on. I didn't know we were going to talk the forum.
Wow.
But yeah, there's so many things. But you are open to hearing that, I think, which is also something that benefited you from that experience, was that you were in a place in which those things really connected with you.
I think most people end up in the forum in a situation where nothing else has worked.
Right.
And that's going to get them. I mean, one thing with human beings, we really tend to repeat patterns.
Yep.
They're very comfortable.
Creatures of habit.
Creatures of habit. It's very comfortable when you're doing it. People like to sometimes will watch the same movie over and over and over, then watch something new because they know it. It's comfortable. There's going to be no surprises. Well, the forum gave me the ability to break that, to break patterns that I was in, because I was just in the same. I would go in, especially dating. I was in the same pattern. I'd go out with a girl. There wouldn't be enough communication. I would just let it run its course, and then it would just end. And it just wasn't able to break those patterns. But the forum gave me those tools to break those patterns. And a lot of times I still fall into a lot of the same pattern, but I have the tools now to know that I'm in that pattern.
Right.
And then I can choose to get out of the pattern, or I can choose to, if I want, to stay in and be depressed if I want.
Yeah, because you know that you're doing it.
There's nothing wrong with that, but I know it now.
Right.
So it's something I recommend for everybody to actually take, because it's really interesting what they do there. I mean, the way they do it and the things they come up with are incredible. And I know I've told you this before, Isaac, but really quickly, George, you can basically the way they say where the forum exists is you can sum up the knowledge of the entire world or everything you know into 3 categories. The first category is things that you know that you know. Plenty of stuff. You know soccer, you know music, you know how to produce, you know how to DJ. There's a lot of things that you know strongly you know. And then there's a big chunk of things that you don't know. You probably know that you probably don't know how to split an atom. I could be wrong. You might. I don't know. I'm guessing.
No, not yet. But I know you can, but I don't know how.
Correct.
There's a whole list of things that you know that you don't know.
Yeah.
And where the forum generally operates is in that third category, which is probably the biggest category of all, and that's things that you don't know that you don't know.
Unknown unknowns.
Unknowns. So when I went in the forum, I thought I knew everything. I didn't think there was anything that they could show me that I hadn't at least heard of. And boy, was I wrong. Because I can tell you within a day or so, I was on the phone with I was in Chicago. I was on the phone with everybody, my parents. I was on the phone apologizing for this, apologizing for that, saying, I'm sorry I did this, I'm sorry I did that. It really helps you break patterns, apologize for things that you've done. And it was strong enough where they heard the changes, where everybody flew in, because this was like Saturday and Sunday. And then Tuesday night, there's a kind of a graduation ceremony where they go over a few things, but you bring in people to introduce them to the forum with the hope of taking it, because the forum doesn't do any advertising. Everybody flew in. Melissa flew in. Bill flew in, who's Sky's father. My parents flew in. Stepmom flew in. Everybody just dropped everything and flew in because they had heard the changes. And everybody except my father ended up taking the forum. And the advanced forum. There's an advanced forum too.
Wow!
But they heard the changes. But
That's beautiful,
it's
man.
really powerful.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Shout out the forum. Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like it unlocks some empathy. Also, that was another point that I was going to make.
Sounds like a real ego checker as well.
It's a huge ego checker.
Yes.
It's a checker of everything. It's an eye opener.
GM.
Let's do it.
Take us home.
So to end all things, because all good things come to an end. Well, you've seen our episodes. Mine's more fill in the blank. I am gonna take out one word from now on because I think it harnesses too much of.
Don't take it out yet because I prepared.
That's why take it out. Take it out. Throw them off.
It's real simple. So mine's is right. I'll say the original one, but I'm gonna change. It's real simple change, but I think it helped the question run free in people's mind. What I usually say is my name is blank and I am blank, but I'm gonna say now is my name is blank and I blank.
Yes.
Oh, I gotta leave the am in.
You can add it. You can add it.
Leave it in.
I gotta leave it in.
You can add it in, but I think from now on I'm gonna take it out.
I agree with you.
I've been taking it out here and there, like subconsciously, without noticing.
Make it a little. I think that makes it a little tougher without the am.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the good thing, though, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't want to restrict people to thinking like, "What am I right now?" You know,
Right.
It's more of like, "I what." what do I feel? What do so go ahead and take it away.
No,
If
I
you want
agree
to
with
add the
that.
end, go ahead.
I'm leaving the ammon. My name is Russell, and I am a high-functioning stoner. And you like that one?
I just was not expecting to go because we talked about this.
We're going there,
before.
baby.
No,
We're going
I know.
there because I am proud of that, and I am not only proud of that, but I worship the two guys who have really brought that on to this country and this world, and that is number one, Snoop Dogg,
Let's go, D-O-double-G.
Snoop Dogg, and Seth Rogen. These are two guys who have accomplished amazing things in their careers, and yet have not been afraid to come out and say that they get high constantly on a regular basis. I mean, it's killed me over the years of the double standard of alcohol.
Oh
and
yeah.
weed.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I
world's
mean,
upside down.
it's completely upside down. I mean, it especially killed me when I owned the bar for 8 years, and everybody's coming in and drinking this and drinking that,
And driving.
and yet I have to go into my office and hide my office bong from everybody else. And yes, drinking and driving, and the fact that it always bugged me about how they were always saying how marijuana is such a gateway drug. Well, no. Everybody, and I'll ask you two guys also. George, do you smoke? You smoke occasionally, right?
No, dabble in it.
Dabbling, that's all right.
I dabbled in it. Yeah, I'll admit
But
that. Yeah.
before you ever smoked, I'm going to assume that you probably had alcohol before weed.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Isaac,
Yes, I did too. Yeah, I don't know why I even
I
thought
would
about
say that would
Yeah.
be a 99% nine for everybody.
Yes,
That
yes.
just about everybody had alcohol before they ever had weed. That is the true gateway drug, alcohol.
I agreed.
And yet it's been such a sin for people to get high and marijuana that it's really been frustrating. And personally, I've always known myself about the benefits medically. I mean, long time ago. I always have had stomach issues for a long time. It always helped calm my
I'll go a
stomach
step
down.
further. I think your mind is the gateway drug, and
That is a little deeper, but yeah, I can't argue with that
We're
one.
going really deep with
I
that
can't.
one, bro.
I
Going
cannot
down
argue with
another
that
bunny
one.
trail.
You're probably correct on that because it all does come from the mind.
Oh my god. I'm not even gonna touch that. I'm not even gonna touch that. But I agree. The medical benefits of it. Recently, I've experienced it more than ever. I've had really bad stomach issues as well, and I always, for whatever reason, that's the last thing on my mind to do because I'm the type of person to say I can tough it out. I'll be fine. I'll just let it pass. But sometimes it's so bad, I'll just take one rip, and immediately it makes me feel it reduces all pain, and I'm able to get through that period of time much more healthily than me like straining and constantly being in pain. Which when I was in the hospital with diverticulitis, same thing. I'd be the type of person to not ask for the drugs. I'm like, I can get through it. And the doctor came and said, no, dude, your intestines right now are going like this, and we need them to do this. We need them to open. Wow, probably shouldn't have my hands placed there, but they're, it's. They're really tense and constricted, but we need them to open up. Man, this turned. That last question, I was not expecting
Next
to go.
thing you're going to be
into
switching
that.
over to tossed salad now.
Oh, you heard that in the Roberto.
I mean, a lot of our conversations are pretty humorous at family gatherings, Russell. So
Of course.
this was overdue. The little laughs we've had here.
You have to, man. This was okay. That was beautiful.
But it definitely loosens up, relaxes the body, relaxes muscles
Everything.
and things like that, and that's going to help with the stomach, and that's going to help with everything.
Agreed.
I mean, are you familiar with kind of how the medical marijuana started with Charlotte's Web?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could say
mean,
it. Go ahead. Say
that was a
it.
great one.
Because
There was a girl named Charlotte. She had epilepsy. Young baby was
bad
born
epilepsy.
was
Hundreds-
having
hundreds a day.
300 grand mal seizures a week. And these guys, the Stanley brothers, were doing research with marijuana, especially marijuana that was very high in CBD, which is a compound in the marijuana plant, and they were having tremendous luck with it and things like seizures. And her parents reached out to the Stanley brothers. They came in, they got her all medicated up. They started giving her, again, the CBD, so it's not the psychotropic part of the marijuana plant, no THC. And she went from 300 grand mal seizures a week to 3 a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it was an absolute life changer. And I've seen story after story where you look at these people that have these vials and vials and vials of all these medications they've been taking, 20 medications, 30 medications a day, and it's barely controlling what they have. And then all of a sudden they get onto miracle marijuana and they don't need to take any pills, and all their ailments have basically disappeared. I mean, you can't argue with the results.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I also do the results.
It helps certain people in different ways, and I also do think that it's not for everyone, because I've seen people.
There's nothing for everyone.
That's true. There's nothing for everyone. So anybody listening to this, make sure you know who you are and see how it affects you. 100%.
Learn about yourself.
That was amazing, Russell. Thank you so much for spending your Saturday with us. That was beautiful.
You guys.
That was amazing.
I really
now is your time that you have that camera in front of you, that camera, the millions of followers, after being educated on the forum in Charlotte's Web.
Millions and millions, as The Rock would say.
Millions. Yes, let's get into WWE now. Just kidding. Let's not go down that way. So go ahead and plug whatever you want to plug. Tell the people what you want them to know. This is your time, sir.
Well, I would like to plug that everybody should have a medical emergency plan, not only for yourself, but for your family members, everybody. So they can go to mynotify1.com, and you guys will put the link up.
Yep.
And they can use the promo code CafeCon, of course, CafeCon, the world's best podcast. And that will give them 75% off of any of our plans.
Let's go.
And it will pay a nice 50% commission right into these guys' pockets.
Let's go.
Love that.
Which is fantastic. And the other thing is you can go to our website for the musical, which would be healingsoundsofmusic.org, all one word, healingsoundsofmusic.org. You can learn more about our organization, and there is a way to donate if you'd like to donate some money to help us put on more performances at more assisted living facilities. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here. You guys do a fantastic podcast, by the way. You guys really make everybody feel at home. I've listened to a few. I'm going to listen to a few more. But you guys really ask some really good questions. You guys are really thoughtful, smart. You guys just really do a really, really good job. I was very impressed when I saw the first episode.
Thanks, man. We've grown quite a bit. We have grown quite a
long way.
So, and
long way, baby.
We look forward to growing. And just really quick before we log off, I just let.
Whoa.
There it is. Got that right up there. Promo code CafeCon.
That's it right there, peeps.
All right, I'll email you the links just so you have them.
Please. Thank you so much for coming on.
Russell.
Enjoy your Saturday. Love you
that
both.
Was awesome.
GM,
that
love
was
seeing
awesome.
your face, brother. There it is.
That was.
This is the Cafe con Podcast.